Hi, a very good day, Madam Shafika. My name is Arna Kartika Putri, and I'll be presenting the case law Partridge v. Crittenden, 1968. The case of Partridge v. Crittenden is an English legal case known for emphasizing the distinction between an offer and an invitation to treat. This distinction is essential in the development of contracts as it determines whether a legally binding agreement has been formed. So the case occurred after the defendant, Mr. Partridge, placed an advertisement offering Bramblefinch hens for sale, and this act resulted in his prosecution under the 1954 Protection of Birds Act, which forbids selling protected bird species. The facts revolved around an advertisement created by the defendant, Mr. Partridge, which offers Bramblefinch hens for 25 shillings each. Mr. Thompson responded to the advertisement and offered money for one of the birds. However, Mr. Partridge was later on charged under the Protection of Birds Act 1954, which made it illegal to offer for sale a wild bird of the species mentioned. So the advertisement was determined by the court to be an invitation to treat rather than an offer, as it was argued that categorizing generic advertisements as offers would have unintended legal consequences towards the seller or the business. So the court's decision reaffirmed the rule that unless they explicitly indicate an intention to establish legal relations, advertisements are not legally binding offers. The primary legal issue in this case was whether Mr. Partridge's advertisement was an offer for sale or merely an invitation to treat. This issue is significant in contract law as it determines whether a legally binding agreement is created when a consumer responds to an advertisement. So if the advertisement was deemed as an offer, Mr. Partridge may be obligated to sell the hens to anyone who accepted, thus violating the Protection of Birds Act 1954. By offering wild birds for sale without fulfilling the legal requirements. However, if it constituted as an invitation to treat, Mr. Partridge would be under no legal obligation to complete any transaction initiated by the purchaser. The legal authorities involved in this case is Protection of Birds Act 1954, which is an important legislation in the United Kingdom that protects wild bird species from exploitation and harm. So in this act, it is illegal to sell, offer for sale, or possess any live wild birds unless it was a close-ranked species raised in captivity. Second is Contract Act 1950, which governs the formation and enforcement of contracts in Malaysia. So as you can see in section 2A, defines a proposal or offer as the expression of a willingness to do or abstain from doing something with the intention of obtaining the assent of the other party. And section 2B states that a proposal becomes a promise when it is accepted. So this section emphasized that a valid offer must clearly express an intention to create legal obligations upon acceptance. And lastly, we have Consumer Protection Act 1999, which ensures fair practices in trade and commerce, safeguarding consumers from misleading or deceptive advertisement. In this section, I will be comparing Partridge v. Crittenden with three other case law, which is Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain v. Boots, Fisher v. Bell, and Carlisle v. Carbolic Smoke Ball Company. So first of all, in Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain versus Boots, in this case, the court addressed whether the display of goods on shelves was an offer or an invitation to treat. The court concluded that the display of goods at a self-service store was an invitation to treat, and the offer only occurred when the consumer placed the goods at the counter for payment, and the shopkeeper reserved the right to accept or reject the offer. So the judgment is aligned with the reasoning in Partridge v. Crittenden, as both judgments emphasizes the initial display or advertisings are not binding offers, but rather opportunities for consumers to make offers that sellers may accept or reject. And next, in comparison to Fisher v. Bell, so in this case, a flick knife was displayed in the store window, allegedly in violation of the Restriction of Offensive Weapon Act 1959. The court ruled that the display was an invitation to treat rather than an offer for sale. Consequently, the seller was not in violation of the Act's prohibition of selling offensive weapon. So the ruling is consistent with the rationale in Partridge versus Crittenden case as well, as in which the advertisement of the bid was deemed to be an invitation to treat. So both rulings demonstrate that advertisements or product displays are not binding offers, enabling businesses to the ability to negotiate terms or deny transaction under specific circumstances. And lastly, in Carlisle versus Carbolic Smoke Ball Company, so in contrast, this case law involved an advertisement that was deemed to be an unilateral offer. So the business guaranteed to reimburse £100 to anyone who used their products as advised but still contracted influenza. However, the court found that the advertisement was a legally binding offer as it demonstrated a clear intention to be bound by specifying conditions of performance and depositing money as proof of sincerity. So this case varies drastically from Partridge versus Crittenden, as Carlisle's advertising clearly indicated intended to create a legal obligation if the listed circumstances were met. So it emphasizes that advertising can be interpreted as offers if they clearly indicate objective. The legal arguments involved in this case was that the prosecution stated by listing the birds for sale, Mr. Partridge made a legally binding offer to sell these protected wild birds. They further argued that when a consumer responded to the advertisement and purchased a bird, it constituted an acceptance of an offer, resulting in a legally binding agreement. The prosecution also cited the Protection of Birds Act 1954, which restricted the sale of certain type of wild birds unless they were bred in captivity, claiming that the advertisement violated the law. However, the defense claimed that the advertising was merely an invitation to treat and not an offer. So under contract law, advertisements are often considered as invitation for consumers to make offers to acquire goods or services rather than binding offers themselves. The defendants argued that the advertisements phrases indicated no intention to legally bound upon acceptance and instead function as an encouragement for consumers to make offers to acquire the bird. However, the defense further claimed that viewing advertisements as offers would place an excessive burden on businesses by obliging them to comply with limitless amount of contracts. And the court eventually agreed with the defense, concluding that the advertisement were an invitation to treat, as it outlined the principle that unless explicitly indicated otherwise, advertisements are typically invitation for consumers to make offers that sellers can either accept or reject it. So the court's ruling highlighted the legal distinction between offers and an invitation to treat, reaffirming that the view that advertisement do not always constitute offers, thus protecting businesses from unforeseen obligations. In my opinion, the ruling in this case can be quite problematic and challenging, specifically in the way advertisements are interpreted by potential consumers. So many consumers might be unaware of the legal distinction between an offer and an invitation to treat, thus they may assume that advertisements are legally binding offers. So this misconception can result in dissatisfaction, disagreements, or feelings of betrayal when businesses are refused to comply with the advertised terms due to legal constraint. While the decision is critical to protect businesses from unanticipated liabilities, it also emphasizes the importance of improved consumers' education in aligning public perception with the legal reality of advertisement. So this issue also raises ethical concerns about how business communicate through advertising and marketing. And even if an advertisement is technically an invitation to treat, businesses have ethical responsibility to ensure that their marketing does not deliberately set misleading expectation to their consumers. And clear and straightforward communications can help avoid this misunderstanding. So disclaimers such as subject to availability or terms and conditions apply can help consumers set a more realistic expectations. In 2021, the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission (MCMC) took action against telecommunication firms such as Celcoms, Maxis, and TuneTalk for misleading advertisement. So these companies advertised unlimited data plans that were actually subject to hidden fair usage policies. So this regulation enforced data limitations, which resulted in limited internet speed, contradicting the plans offered unlimited data. So consumers were deceived into believing they were purchasing genuinely limitless packages, which resulted in complaints and regulatory action. So the Malaysian Communication of Multimedia Commissions issued warning under Section 127 of the Communication and Multimedia Act 1998, requiring telecommunication firms to alter their promotional materials, and non-compliance may result in fines up to 100,000 or imprisonment or both. So this issue highlights the need of prioritizing transparency and honesty in marketing business operation, and businesses that align their advertising materials with consumers' expectation and legal obligation can maintain trust while avoiding regulatory penalties. So in conclusion, in the Malaysian legal environment, this case law, the Partridge versus Crittenden, provides a significant insights on the distinction between offers and invitation to treat, which is essential in the digital era, where advertisements are sometimes misinterpreted as offers. So according to the Contract Act 1950, advertisement on platforms such as Shopee or Lazada should be interpreted as invitation to treat unless there is a clear language indicating a binding offer. So this decision, it has a significant influence on how businesses and their consumers in Malaysia negotiate contracts, as it establishes conditions for what constitutes a legally binding agreement. So that is all from me. Thank you so much.